Hello, I'm the Pink Phantom, and this is my podcast. Join me as I delve into the world of games and gaming, and especially old school RPGs. Together, let's voyage into the astral realm and check out my phantom thoughts. We're going to start off this episode with some feedback on part of my RPG a day entries from August coming from BJ. So take it away, BJ.
Hey, Pink Phantom, it's BJ. I am enjoying your RPG a day month. I'm a few days behind. I just listened to the episode on Origin, and I know calling in on RPG a day is a dangerous prospect, because what should be a series of short daily entries become massive daily entries as everyone starts commenting and asking questions about one another's episodes. So if you don't want to share this, you don't have to. Or if you want to wait to the end of the month and share it, I don't know what your plan is, but this is just more my feedback for you is, if you're going to flesh what you're developing out as a real adventure, it's just something that occurred to me when you were pondering the origin of this deity that you randomly rolled, which is a benevolent earth deity, but it has somehow wandered off somewhere in the cosmos and become separated from its worshippers or from the campaign setting. And it occurred to me that you've also got a Lamia in there as a figure, and that I believe in D&D, Lamia are sort of more associated with wastelands and deserts. So here's one idea, just take it or leave it, but maybe this area, maybe the deity is more of a regional deity, and this area used to be a very verdant, fertile place, but the deity wandering off has now caused it over the ages to become more of a dry, arid, or unsuitable, so people are just scratching out a living. What agriculture exists has a very low yield. Maybe that's why it's people are out scrounging for treasure, why they're out looking for new trade routes or places to just bring things in, because the people who live here can't produce a lot of their own sustenance. Anyway, so that just seemed to fit with, we've got this benevolent earth deity that has become separated from the people, but is now trying to find its way back. I don't know if that means the deity wandered somewhere farther off in the cosmos, or some other event happened to cause people to turn away from them, or for them to become hidden, or maybe they went off, again, as a regional deity. Maybe they're deep in the earth somewhere and need to come back to the surface in some kind of literal or semi-literal sense. I don't know. I'm kind of wandering with my thoughts there. But anyway, the things that, inspired you to put some stuff together, what came out of that process just inspired me there for a minute with an idea I thought I'd share. So again, take it or leave it. And I look forward to hearing all the other stuff you put out for the rest of the month. I'll talk to you later.
Thank you, BJ, for the call. BJ is the host, proprietor of the Arcane Alienist podcast. He recently just put out an episode, as of this time when this episode is dropping, about You Are Not Your Character Sheet, which I found very interesting. So I encourage you to check that out. There's a link to his podcast in the show notes. And I really like this idea that you brought up, BJ, because a lot of times when I think about gods and their power, and if you've listened to what I've kind of done with that god within the context of RPG a day, I think often of the other direction, the influence that worshippers have on a god, and how a god is more powerful the more worshippers it has, and that kind of thing. And so this is the flip side. This is the true god side. This is the part that most people think about when they talk about gods in a fantasy setting, the powers and abilities that they have, the effects that they have on the world around them. Although in most cases they think about the active role that gods take, something like the way that the Olympians of Greek myth were constantly interfering with the lives of mortals in the various myths to satisfy their own needs or what have you. And this is a case of where just a god's presence or absence has an effect. It's kind of like the gods just in being in a location has an effect naturally because it is a god. And that's a very intriguing concept. And I've heard it used in the context of monsters, where powerful monsters, mythological type monsters, if you encountered them in their lair, their very presence there affects what their lair is and how their lair may be a hostile environment, not necessarily just because of the actions of the creature, but just because of the very presence of the creature. So that's a very interesting take, and I think it's something that I'm going to have to give some serious thought to. So thank you for your feedback. So this week we have a sort of a buku of bundles. I'm not sure exactly what the proper measurement of a buku is, but there we have it. But first I want to talk about a bundle I previously discussed, the Humble Bundle Ultimate Guide to TTRPG World Building and Folklore. This thing has been haunting me on social media. It seems like everywhere I go, I see an ad for it, and I haven't interacted with Humble Bundle on all my social media, so it's just something that's occurring within my feed. Most of it, admittedly, is on Facebook, but I don't think I interacted with it on Facebook because usually when I look at bundles on Humble Bundle or Fanatical or Bundle Holding or anything like that, it's through an email because I'm on all those email lists. But of course, we know there's various trackers that attach themselves to you, so no doubt that's probably how Facebook ended up just keeps throwing this thing at me. But also, I've noticed in my feed it being covered by other people. Tinkar's Tavern, primary example, has covered that bundle. But I just found it interesting because this is really the first time any of the bundles I've discussed or looked at on one of the bundle sites has just kept appearing in front of me. So I don't know if you call that haunting or a curse or just temptation. It's a lure. It's the light that the ferocious fish down in the deep trenches, ocean trenches, hold in front of them until somebody comes into light. Oh, what is that light? Chomp. But enough of that. Going back to Humble Bundle, one of the bundles is the Pathfinder Primer Bundle. This is for, of course, Pathfinder 2e, the current edition of Pathfinder, and it's a good starting point for if you want to get into Pathfinder 2e. I have the book from the original, the 1e, now I guess they call it, book from Pathfinder, and I think maybe one or two other books from that line. I haven't dug into Pathfinder 2e, but if you're looking into getting into it, and you're somebody that interacts well with RPGs and PDFs, you don't need to have the physical copy in front of you to make it work. This would be a good way to get a start. Another interesting Humble Bundle, the Dungeon Masters Guild Humble Bundle, where it's taking best-selling titles from the Dungeon Masters Guild, which is, it's the WotC brand zone of the Drive-Thru RPG family of sites selling you PDFs. Now, I don't know if they are in fact selling you PDFs. Now, it does say that it will be fulfilled through Drive-Thru RPG. Some of it will be fulfilled through Drive-Thru RPG. But as Jason from the Nerds RPG Variety Cast properly pointed out one time before, when you buy some of these things, particularly the TSR, not TSR, the WotC branded ones, the official books, and there are some of those in this, you're not getting the right to own even a PDF that you can download at any time. It's just something you have the right to access through their various online ways of accessing content and material. It also does mention that some of this content is going to be fulfilled through Roll20. And the reason that's important is because if you lost membership, gave up membership, quit paying or whatever for your digital access through Wizards of the Coast, you would lose access to those books. I don't know if that's the case with this, or if this is a case of where you will get, instead of the right to access these books, the right to be able to download these books as PDFs. So I don't know the answer to that question. I couldn't really tell from the entry, and I know it's kind of a nebulous thing the way they do things. So buyer beware there. Going back to the Pathfinder 2e Primer Bundle, one thing I did want to mention, there's actually a physical item in this bundle. which is the first time I've seen something like that in one of these types of bundles. There's an actual physical book that you can get. It's limited availability, so I guess they just have so many that they're allocating to this bundle, but it's there. It's a sketch cover version of the Monster Core book of Pathfinder 2e. So that was one thing that really grabbed my attention. I was like, an actual physical object is part of this bundle. Now, of course, that's represented in the price, but it's a price that if you buy it would still be the same or less than you would pay for one of these books physically, and then you get the other books as well in terms of all the non-physical books and different things like I think there's different kinds of mats and stuff, digital mats for like battle mats, and so there's more than a dozen items total. So you're not paying for very many dollars per item, and you're getting a physical book potentially. And I don't know if the limited quantity of it means that only so many people will get the physical book, and then anybody else will just be buying PDFs, what that would do for the price, or if it means that once they run out of the limited quantities of this hardcover book, that there won't be any more of this bundle to buy. So that's something to be aware of. The last thing is Rifts. If you've ever wanted to get into Rifts, or you're a Rifts fan and you're always looking to expand your collection, a Bundle of Holding is doing 5 different bundles of Rifts. And I think these are all returns from what it sounds like for bundles they've done in the past. And they unveiled 2 on the first day, and they've been unveiling 1 each day after, as of my recording of this podcast. And right now I'm recording this on Wednesday night. So right before this podcast will break early Thursday morning, they've released 4 of them. And I believe there's supposed to be 5. So there'll probably be one more that comes out Thursday at some point. I've got links to all these bundles in the show notes, and I'll probably upload, a new version of the show notes once that last bundle comes out, so that they're all available as well. So a whole lot of bundling going on this week. A lot of bundling goodness. And if you're into Rifts, if you've ever wanted to get into Rifts, depending on how you go with it, because Bundle of Holding, like some of these bundles, there's a basic bundle you can buy that's got a lot of books, and then there's an upgraded bundle you can buy which costs more money. And the way Bundle Holding does it, I think that upgraded bundle, the price goes higher as more people buy it. I believe that's the way that works. But the base bundle stays the same price. The base bundles for these have all been $19.95. So if you got all 5, that'd be $100. And then the upgraded price, and they have a special name for it, but I don't remember what it was, and I'm not going to look it up. Stop to look it up. But that upgraded price for some of them has already gotten well into the $40 mark. I think one of them has even gotten over $50 at this point. So, if that holds, and depending on when you buy it, you could end up, if you bought everything, you could end up paying $200 for it. But by that time, you're probably looking at hundreds of books in the PDFs, because this is not just, 5 books here and 5 books there. Or I think maybe it is. The base bundles are like about 4 or 5 books, and then 5 to 10 more depending on what the bundle is, if you do the upgrade. But still, you're talking about. All right, so I just went back on what I said and went back and looked, just because I want to make sure, because there's so many, 4 different bundles. So 3 of the bundles are, you get a base of 5 things. Some of them are, they're not full books. They're some kind of guides or what have you. But there's 3 of them that have the $19.95, and you're getting at least 5 items for that $19.95. And then you have anywhere from 9 to 12 in the bonus collections that you have to power up the price for. And then there's the 4th one that came out is just one full collection. It looks like it's 11 books for $29.95. So there's no bonus collection to that. So you just pay the $29.95. But you're talking about, once you add it all up, you're looking at well over 50 books for sure if you buy everything. And that's with those 4 offers. I don't know what the 5th offer will be, which way it'll go. And some of the bonus power-up prices are, one of them's just $30-something at this point. One of them's $40-something at this point. And I'm not sure what the other one is. But in any case, you're looking at spending maybe $150 all total for these 4, and you're getting 50 books. So $3 a book. PDFs, but still. So again, if you're into riffs, or if you just want some, world books with ideas how to put different civilizations or civilization types or types of play, because some of them are science fiction, some of them are fantasy, into a world like ours, something worth considering. But now I'm going to stop blathering about bundles and start blathering about blogs. So in the blogosphere, From the Sorcerer's Skull talks about how the genre of sword and planet is good for adventures. It's talking about those pulpy John Carter of Mars type adventures that really mix fantasy and sci-fi, all and just plain adventure all together. Particularly, it's focusing on some ideas from Edgar Rice Burroughs' Venus series. And in the blog, whose measure God could not take, whosemeasure.blogspot.com, the blogger talks about how this is a blog that generates a lot of random type of tables and things, lists of things, and talks about how they're working to take all their different types of magic items and such and create a random magic generator from it eventually for the blog, from the different blog entries, and realized they hadn't done armor. So this particular blog spotlights a D20 table of armors. But it's a great blog just for if you like random tables and stuff. It's a great blog for that. Joel Peterson on his Substack under the Complete DM sort of imprint or series does a review of the White Box, WIGHT box. There's an edition on Kickstarter right now for it, and he's going through it, and it's an attempt to take the original OD&D books and chainmail and meld them together in a more sort of cohesive game, is what the author is trying to do with that, so that maybe it fits more together than just kind of disparate parts, disparate tools, I should say, which is kind of what the early hobby was and the early edition of the game was. It was tools that were related but not necessarily designed all together, and certainly not as a streamlined system. And then lastly, on A Night, KNIGHT, at the Opera blog, asked the question, how do you handle the inside of a hex? And the blogger there is talking about how most hex crawls tend to treat hexes in one or two ways, either as kind of the same way that Star Wars seems to treat planets, where it's all one basic biome, it's all one basic thing. So if you roll it's a forest hex, it's all a forest hex. If you roll it's a desert hex, it's all a desert hex. And how in those cases they tend to treat hexes as the mode of movement. You're moving 1 hex a day, you're moving 2 hexes a day. And so every hex is kind of uniform within the hex, versus treating the inside of the hex as simply like overlaying. If you overlaid a hex on a terrain map of the world, of the natural world, where you're going to have some hills over here, you're going to have some woods over here, you might have a flat spot here, you might have a stream or a river over here, and those types of hex crawls tend to measure more in some kind of unit of distance, meters or miles or leagues, whatever measure you're using. And so you can traverse part of a hex, whereas with the other version you would either traverse the whole hex or maybe divide that hex into subhexes and traverse so many subhexes. And what that means in terms of straightforward travel through a hex or taking the time to explore a hex, what that means as a means of figuring out the distance from, if there's a feature in that hex that you might want to visit, a dungeon, a castle, a magical lake, where is it in the hex and how far is it from there to the edges, or is it just anybody that goes in there is automatically going to encounter it? So I found that a very interesting post. And if you're heavy into hex crawls, and I've been doing a lot of hex crawling in my solo play with all the various creatures moving around, it's something to consider. How do you handle the inside of a hex? And there are, of course, links to all these blog entries in the show notes. And I would encourage you to follow these blogs, follow these blogs, follow them like they're in your hex crawl. Follow these blogs because I always enjoy when these folks put up a new blog post. And now the sad part of the podcast. Normally when I'm doing recording particularly with the solo AD&D campaign I'm doing, the Tales of the Dragon Slayers, I tend to do that on the weekends. I do a lot of my recording for my podcast on weekends, but I also kind of wait sometimes for things to see if I get feedback or, just in general, if there's something going on that I think will happen in the next day or two that I may want to look at, or if I just see something I want to add at the last minute, I'll do that a little later in the week. But I completely lost track of time this weekend. I wasn't even thinking about, and I didn't record the next session, as it were, didn't record the summary of the next part of the adventure of the Dragon Slayers. So sadly, there is no Tales of the Dragon Slayers this week. I think this is the first time I've missed doing that for a full podcast without missing the podcast entirely, which I have done fairly recently. But I think that's the first time I've done that, maybe since I started doing it as an ongoing thing. So for those of you that if this is the part of the podcast you look forward to, I apologize. I will make sure that I get some recording done on that this weekend to take care of that, because I enjoy, passing that on to you. I get very excited about the campaign and passing on that to y'all. But this is the end of the podcast, unfortunately. But thank you for listening, and I hope you'll come back next time. The opening theme of this podcast was Strength of the Titans, and the closing music is Late Out Radio, both from Kevin MacLeod at Incompetech.com, licensed under Creative Commons by Attribution 4.0 license. If you have any thoughts or feedback, you can get in touch with me by leaving me a voice message on my Google Voice number, 864-209-1441. That's 864-209-1441. Or through SpeakPipe at www.speakpipe.com/Phantom Thoughts. That's www.speakpipe.com/Phantom Thoughts. Or you can send me a message or an audio file on Discord, where I can be found the Pink Phantom, or through email, phantomthoughtspodcast@gmail.com. That's phantomthoughtspodcast@gmail.com. I don't have to play or read your feedback on the podcast if that is not your preference. Just let me know.